Perhaps a little too optimistic? David Stockman, who was the director of the Office of Management and Budget under President Ronald Reagan, joins us now after leaving the White House. Mr. Stockman had a long career on Wall Street. Thanks for coming to the NASDAQ. It's good to see you.
Very good.
Are Gorman and Cohn missing something?
Well, they're talking their book. They're selling stock. You would expect them to be optimistic. But I think we have a dead cat bounce in no man's land around 1870 on the S&P. We've been there now for 700 days, if you can believe that. It first crossed in February 2014. By my count, we've had something like 35 attempts at rally. All of them have failed for what I call the four no's. There's no escape velocity. I think we're heading for a recession. There's no earnings growth. They're actually going down, honest earnings on a GAAP basis. There's no dry powder left in the central banks of the world. We've been through a spree of 20 years, and I think they're done, all of them, from China to here. And there's no reflation because there won't be any credit growth in the world, and we're going into a much different deflationary era. Now, let me just hit the first one, no escape velocity. Forget about jobs. It's a lagging indicator, and besides that, the BLS counts anybody that can fog a mirror as having a job. Sales, business sales are the heart of the matter. They're down 4%. CapEx orders are down 6% from the peak a year ago. Freight volume is down 7% from a year ago. Exports are down 12%. Inventories to sales are at an October 2008 level.
Are you suggesting that we're going to, for the first time in history, import a recession?
Well, I don't know where, we're in a flat global economy. Everything's interrelated. We're now in a huge deflation as a result of this massive credit bubble we've had. Now, let me give two numbers that I think are really important. Central banks had $2 trillion of balance sheets about 2 decades ago. It's $21 trillion now, 10x. Not chump change. This is high-powered money that caused an enormous expansion of credit and financial valuation bubble. Secondly, that resulted in debt in the world going from 40 trillion, mid-90s, to 225 trillion today. Okay, we are at peak debt. There is no more credit that can be shoved into the system. There has been massive overinvestment in everything, mining, energy, heavy industry, transportation, you name it, shipbuilding.
I guess the one thing, though, is how long have you been negative? What's the point of reference? Because can the equity markets, because we've known a lot of these things in the past, can the equity markets still grind higher or stabilize with smoke and mirrors, to your point, your words? How long have you been negative while the S&P has run up? I guess that's a good point.
I've been negative ever since they started the money printing spree that I described because it wasn't sustainable. Sure, with credit growth, you can get China in this massive expansion, but now they're drowning in excess capacity of everything. They created 1 billion tons of steel. They don't have demand for half of it. They doubled the size of their auto industry. Demand is not growing that rapidly. So if we look around the world, everything now for the first time in 20 years is beginning to shrink. And the central banks clearly can't do anything. The Bank of China is facing $1 trillion of capital flight this year. When the December numbers are in, it'll be $1 trillion of capital flight. They can't run the printing press or they will cause a total panic. The Bank of Japan is crazy. They're buying anything in the fixed income market that moves and anything that stands still. They're done. Europe, Draghi is down to emitting word clouds. There is no more that he can do. And the Fed set on the zero bound for 84 months at zero. There's nowhere to go except negative interest rates, which will cause a political explosion in this country. So I say, look at earnings, okay? Honest earnings were $106 a share, S&P, GAAP, LTM, September 2014. They came in at 91, and the LTM just ended in the third quarter. That's down 14%, and I don't see why it's going up. So therefore, I think we're now getting to the point, where the chickens are coming home to roost, and you're not going to be able to fake your way any further. There's no hope from the central banks, and that's why these rallies are getting weaker and weaker and shorter and shorter.
We're going to leave it.